Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the third canto, chapter 14, text number 21. And today's topic is Griha Ishvari, as Ramananda noticed in the verse today, which means, O Queen of the Home. So you can see the Queen of the Home, then that means there must be a King of the Home. So there's the King and the Queen. And what is mainly the Griha, the King and the Queen, they're mostly interested in what? Enjoyment, basically. So anyway, let's go on to the verse. Translation. O Queen of the Home, we are not able to act like you, nor could we repay you for what you have done. Even if we worked for our entire life, or even after death, to repay you is not possible, even for those who are admirers of personal qualities. By Srila Prabhupada. So much glorification of a woman by her husband indicates that he is henpecked, or is talking lightly in joke. Kashyapa meant that householders living with wives enjoy the heavenly blessings of sense enjoyment, and at the same time have no fear of going down to hell. The man in the renounced order of life has no wife, and may be driven by sex desire to seek another woman, or another's wife, and thus go to hell. In other words, the so-called man of the renounced order who has left his house and his wife goes to hell if he again desires sexual pleasure, knowingly or unknowingly. In that way, the householders are on the side of safety. Therefore, husbands, as a class, cannot repay their debt to women, either in this life or in the next. Even if they engage themselves in repaying the women throughout their whole lives, it is still not possible. Not all husbands are as able to appreciate the good qualities of their wives. But even though one is able to appreciate these qualities, it is still not possible to repay the debt to the wife. Such extraordinary praises by a husband for his wife are certainly in the mode of joking. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyanandana Salakaya Sri Gopeka Sri Stanamanobistam Sapitami Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Vanchakaupa Tirishra Kripa Sindhu Bevicha Patitaram Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So let's go back to the verse. O Queen of the Home, we're not able to act like you, nor could we repay you for what you have done, even if we worked for our entire life, or even after death. To repay you is not possible, even for those who are admirers of personal qualities. So here Kashyapa is glorifying his wife, praising her very nicely. And as Prabhupada says, this indicates that he is henpecked, or is talking lightly in joke. And then he says, Kashyapa meant, what he meant is that we actually enjoy heavenly blessings. You have the Queen of the Home, you have the King of the Home, and there's many blessings there. That one has great facilities, for comfort and sense gratification for the body, wonderful food, and also here we're seeing the wife is seeking to gratify her sex desire. And he's saying, yes, I will repay you. In fact, we owe you because you are a protector for the householder, so that he does not glide down to hell. So Prabhu is explaining this in the purport, which is very nice. And how we're on the safe side of safety, the householders. And how the husbands, they actually can't repay the debt in this life or the next life. Even if they try it through their whole lives, it's not possible. So we should appreciate each other. We should appreciate the wife should appreciate the husband. And in this way, they help each other go back to Godhead. This is the purpose. And it's interesting how it starts with that he's henpecked and joking, and the purport ends with that this extraordinary praise is in the mode of joking. So it's interesting how this is actually a joke, but in the middle is telling what he actually meant. So we see how the spiritual master can actually guide us to the real meaning of the Srimad Bhagavatam and what we're supposed to learn from this particular example, which is very astonishing and amazing. So there's a nice verse I came across, or a quote actually. It says, "Be vigilant only for God and His kingdom." So this word vigilant is a very powerful word actually, is that we always have to be on guard. We always have to just realize that actually our whole purpose and goal of everything is for Krishna. We want to have Krishna with us, and we want to attain to his abode. This is the whole purpose of human life. And this is why we're here actually, is that 1 second we were thinking envious of Krishna, and immediately we were drawn into the material world. Maybe we became Lord Brahma, or we could have came in some other form. And we went through this whole cycle for millions and millions of years. It was nice, we had Sankarshan here, Sankarshan Das Adhikari, and he was given a nice class, and he used the example of how, just like you're in the spiritual world and Krishna is about to eat a nice gulab jamun or something, and you're thinking, oh, why should Krishna have that nice gulab jamun? I want that gulab jamun. So Krishna's about to put it in his mouth. But then immediately, because we have that envious attitude, we're thrown into the material world. You become Brahma, and then from Brahma you may go back to the spiritual world from Brahma, but in case you don't, then you may go back down to, unlimited species of life, trying to enjoy in different ways in the material world. And then finally you make it back to Godhead, and you get back, and you're sitting there with Krishna again, and he's about to put that sweet ball in his mouth. So this happened, you had that moment of enviousness of Krishna, and then you came to the material world, which is like millions and billions of years, and then you come back to the spiritual world, and there's Krishna. It's just a second happened, and Krishna's about to put it in his mouth, and then you have a different attitude towards Krishna. You think, oh, Krishna, that's such a nice sweet ball for Krishna, he should enjoy it. And then Krishna immediately takes that sweet ball and he throws it in your mouth, and you enjoy it like that. So this, can you imagine that? It's just a flash. We're in the material world. This is a very temporary place. So we have to be vigilant and not become attracted to this envious nature and be attracted to things in the material world, because they will bind us here and they will keep us here in this kingdom of death. So here's a nice image here, which is the vigilant warrior. This is the devotee. How does he remain vigilant? By chanting Hare Krishna. There's a nice verse which reminded me of that one verse, and how we have to always think of Krishna. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namastu mam evyasi mam evaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosini. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer homage unto me, thus you'll come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my dear friend. So we have to become a dear friend of Krishna, not just an official meditator like we see today, so many official meditators. What are they meditating on? Who knows? Some meaning of sound, or some, idea or something, or just trying to stop all thoughts. But real meditation means, as Prabhupada explains, that we should mold our life in such a way that we have no chance but to think of Krishna. So we act, our daily activities are in connection with Krishna. Everything we do is connected with Krishna. So that's how the meditator, he arranges his life in such a way that, throughout the 24 hours, he cannot but think of Krishna. He's vigilant. This is how we become vigilant in Krishna consciousness, always to be engaged in Krishna service. And then Krishna promises that you will actually return back to Godhead. And you will begin to associate with Krishna again, face to face. And you will enjoy that sweet ball with Krishna. You're gone just a minute. So there's another nice verse from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's also into this point. Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir, Brahmangano Brahmana Hutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. That's from the Bhagavad Gita also. That a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain to the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So this is how this verse has given us a hint on how our activities in Krishna consciousness, they can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal, back to Krishna. So all the activities of Krishna consciousness are explained in the Bhagavad Gita when you go on from this verse. How we're entangled into this material atmosphere, but yet we have to get out of here. And the process to get out of here is Krishna consciousness. And generally, the process is called yajna. Those are activities or sacrifices that are simply meant for satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. So the more our activities in this material world are performed in Krishna consciousness, or we do them for Krishna, for Vishnu, then the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized, and we can really become completely absorbed in Krishna. So the absolute truth is Krishna is everything, but that absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. And then if we dovetail that matter for the cause of the absolute truth, then we will gain the spiritual quality. So that's Krishna consciousness. It's the process of converting the illusory consciousness, into supreme consciousness, spiritual consciousness. So this is the mind absorbed in samadhi. So anything done in this transcendental consciousness, that vigilant consciousness to always remember Krishna or do something for Krishna, that's called yajna, or sacrifice for the absolute. So as Prabhu describes how this is the condition where the spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, and the consumption, the performer, the leader, the performance, the result, and the gain, everything becomes absolute. And that's the method of Krishna consciousness. This is what Prabhupada has taught us. So now it's very interesting how it seems like when I give classes here online, the classes in the temple here are very similar. Right now we're in the 10th canto. We're reading about the appearance of Krishna in the 3rd chapter of the 10th canto. And there's a nice verse I just gave the other day, which talks about the beautiful prayers that Devaki and Vasudeva had offered to Krishna. And then after they finished the prayers, and Krishna began to reply. And he said, "My dear mother, O best of the chaste, in your previous birth, in the Swayambhuva millennium, you were known as Prishni and Vasudeva. And you were the most pious Prajapati." And so he was named Sutpa. So they were both ordered by Lord Brahma to create progeny. And then how you first underwent severe austerities by controlling your senses. So this is the same thing that we were reading about Diti and Kashyapa Muni. They're actually progenitors, also Prajapatis. And they're ordered by Lord Brahma to be progeny. And they knew the principles, they knew the proper method for attaining good children. But as we know the story will go on that she pretty much forced him into it, and now he's glorifying her and praising her, and he's going to engage in sex in the wrong time. So, as described in this purport that was given here in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, that Prabhupada's mentioning the point again, how here's an instruction of how we have to use our senses to create progeny. So, according to the Vedic principles, before gaining or creating progeny, we have to engage in full sense control. And this takes place through the Garbhadan samskar. So there's no need for birth control. And Prabhupada mentions how if one's trying to control birth, it's actually impossible, just like you can't control death. Because, it's impossible. You can't control death nor birth, whether you do it, try to do it artificially or do birth control or something. It's not possible. So, but Prabhupada mentions how people should be educated properly on how to give birth to good children. And that's the samskars, this yajna that we perform. So this is very important. And this will lead to a civilized society, not a society of animals. So if one follows religious principles, then automatically he will practice birth control. And he'll be educated, and he'll know that the after effects of sex are actually various types of misery if one doesn't follow the principles properly. So it's very important that people be educated spiritually, so that instead of begetting cats and dogs, we can undergo austerities, and maybe we can't get a child like Krishna, like Vasudeva and Devaki. But, we could at least get a pure devotee, maybe get a saintly person, a sadhu, a Krishna-conscious personality. So this is the process that Prabhupada's teachings. And we're fortunate that we don't have to actually perform austerities like they did in the time of, the previous birth of Vasudeva and Devaki. They endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat, severe cold, suffering, all kinds of inconveniences. And they were, trying to control the air right through pranayama and yoga. And for a while they only ate air and dry leaves. Can you imagine that? And that's what cleansed their minds of all dirty things. So this is how they desired the benediction from Krishna, and how they worshipped him with a peaceful mind. So what about in our own lives? We're meant to follow principles for good progeny also. But of course it's not possible to get Krishna as our son, but at least we could get good sons and daughters for the benefit of human society. So in the Bhagavad Gita it's described how if we don't follow the way of spiritual life, then we'll just increase the Varna Sankara population. And that's the population begotten like cats and dogs. And then what happens? The entire world becomes hell. So human life is not meant for becoming a hog or dog, but for tapo divyam, transcendental austerity. We talked about that last time, how Lord Shanti explained to his sons, that's the purpose of human life, is tapasya. So even though it's not possible for us to perform this kind of tapasya as we see the yogis, or like Prishni and Sandarbha, but we have the opportunity to perform simple tapasya, and that's with the Sankirtan movement. And Srila Prabhupada, 50 years ago, he came with the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead guiding him to teach us the Sankirtan movement. As we can see in the middle there, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. He came to give us the proper process for performing yajna, give us the proper knowledge on how to become educated and how to live properly, not like animals. So Prabhupada crossed the ocean, and he created a boat here in the form of his movement. And he wants us to take us back to the spiritual world. Actually, the spiritual world consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, and it's situated beyond this material world. And it's especially meant for those who will never be reborn. But Prabhupada mentions how those who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow the celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds. So Prabhupada mentions how the celibacy, it just doesn't mean because you're married then you don't have to practice celibacy. But actually celibacy even in marriage, that we perform the Garbhadan samskara in order to have sex to bring good children only. Actually, man is meant to keep the semina in, and it nourishes the brain. But if one deliberately and unnecessarily wastes it, then he becomes very much an old age disease, senile, and very painful. old age. And this is not what we want, but we want to actually follow the process. And that way we won't have to take birth again. And get the highest benediction the human being can be trained in is to become detached from sex life. And because it's only due to sex indulgence that the conditioned life of mature Christians continues birth after birth. Prabhupada explains that in the second canto, chapter 6, verse 20, that we have to follow these principles. And he mentions in the purple very nicely more information about that. So this is Srila Prabhupada. He came and to teach us how human civilization, where there's no control of sex life, then there's a fourth class civilization. Because in this atmosphere, there's no liberation of the soul. They become encaged in the mature body. They go through birth, death, old age, into this disease. And this disease is related to the body. But we don't have anything to do with the body. We're actually spirit souls. But as long as we're attached to sensual enjoyment, then the individual spirit soul is forced to continue repetition of birth and death on account of the mature body. So the body, we know, is like a garment. And the garment is like it's subject to the law of deterioration. So similarly, this body is actually subject to the law of destruction, birth, death, old age, and disease. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport, again, that householders who have deliberately broken the vow of celibacy cannot enter the kingdom of deathlessness. They may be promoted to higher planets in the mature world, but they will fail to enter into the kingdom of deathlessness. So those are the ones Prabhupada mentions, abrihad vratas, those who break the vow of celibacy. But that fall down by a spiritualist can be compensated by another chance for human life in good families, Varna brahmanas, rich merchants, and then that way he can continue the term of his elevation. But the best thing is to attain the highest perfection of deathlessness. And as soon as the human form of life is attained, we should strive for that. We should be vigilant for that, always attentive, that we don't want to stay here on this ocean of misery. Otherwise, the whole policy of our human life will prove to be a total failure. But we're taught as householders that human life is not meant for becoming a hog or dog, but to perform tapo divyam. This is transcendental austerity that we get to perform in this age. And everyone should be taught. It's very simple. Simply chanting Hare Krishna. So we've been given this opportunity, and it's easy to perform. It's the Sankirtan movement. So this is how the man and woman should live together in a relationship with Krishna, only for the purpose of discharging duties in the service of Krishna. Their lives are engaged 24 hours a day, engaging the wife, the child, the husband, all in Krishna conscious duties. And then what happens? All these bodily attachments, they'll disappear. Since the Vayamidam is Krishna, then the consciousness is pure. And then there's no degradation at any time. We're actually protected. So that's the process. So we can't expect to undergo that austerity, but we can actually take up Krishna consciousness, and we could go back home, back to Godhead with the help of Krishna, and we perform this yajna together with the demigods. They're meant to cooperate, performing yajna, and then they all help each other go back home, back to Godhead. So this is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. We're very grateful that he came, and there's a nice verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which describes how the Lord Chaitanya came as a Panchatattva. They came and they had this storehouse of transcendental love. And even though it came with Krishna when he came, it was sealed. But when Lord Chaitanya came with his associates, they broke that seal and they plundered the storehouse to taste transcendental love of Krishna. And then the more they tasted it, the more their thirst for it grew. So as you could see, they danced, they chanted again and again. And then it made it easier to drink the nectar and love of Godhead. They danced, they cried, they laughed, they chanted like madmen. And in this way they distributed this love of God. And in distributing this love of God, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, they didn't consider who was fit. They didn't consider who should or should not take it. they had no conditions. And wherever they got the opportunity, this Panchatattva, they distributed this love of Godhead. And although they plundered that storehouse of love of Godhead, they ate and distributed its contents. There was no scarcity, for this wonderful storehouse was so complete that this love is distributed and it increased hundreds of thousands of times. And we can see Srila Prabhupada came to distribute that. He came on the order of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he distributed this. As you see, it's increasing and increasing. And he came and handed it to everyone who was, whether they were fit or unfit, being absorbed in Krishna consciousness, dancing, chanting, taking prasadam like that. So in those verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described how that flood of God swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women, and children were all immersed in that inundation. And when the contents of the storehouse of love of Godhead was distributed, there was a powerful inundation that covered the entire land. Just like in Mayapur, sometimes there's a great flood in the rainy season, and that's in the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's in the same way, this love of Godhead spreads all over the world. And it includes everyone, as you could see, young man, old man, women, children. And this is the Krishna consciousness movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so powerful that it can inundate the entire world and interest all classes of men in the subject of love of God. So that's that verse. There's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita 726. Adi 726. And it says, the Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone, whether one be a gentleman, a rogue, or even lame, invalid, or blind. So just see, this is the mercy that we've gotten of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Has given us this great mercy to actually become inundated in this Krishna consciousness society. So it's emphasized that this is a spiritual movement and that we're not concerned with the external body, the skin, and the bones, because we're actually following regulative principles. And we have nothing to do with external impediments that these bodies or these conditions in the come and tempt us. But we're very vigilant to become absorbed in this process of yogya, Sankirtan. So when the Panchatattva, they saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead, and the seed of mature enjoyment in the living entities completely destroyed, they became exceedingly happy. And so the more the 5 members of the Panchatattva caused the rains of love of Godhead to fall, the more the inundation increased all over the world. So this is the proof that Krishna consciousness will spread all over the world, inundating everyone. So this is the power of this movement. So we just simply have to take up this simple process of yogya, Sankirtan movement of chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And go back home, back to Godhead, the place of deathlessness. Jai. It's all in there, and if there's any comments or questions, realizations, we can entertain them now.
Okay, one moment, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Jai, thank you.
Gauda, where did that story, I like that story, I've never heard it before. You said in the very beginning about Krishna getting ready to eat the sweet ball, and then the moment of envy comes, and then we're thrust in the material world for innumerable births, but yet when we enter back into the spiritual world, it's that time is just like nothing. And Krishna takes that sweet ball and puts it in our mouth rather than his.
Yeah.
That was nice. That really struck me. That jumped out at me. Where did that story come from?
I heard that for the first time from you. I was mentioning how he gave class here the other day.
Oh.
He always has a pit stop here in Los Angeles on his travels, twice a year, I think. And then, so he gave class on the 10th canto, and was talking about these verses I mentioned, Vasudeva Devaki, how they underwent austerities to engage, in having a Krishna as a child. You start
That was
talking
nice.
about
And then one other little quick question. One of the paintings that you showed, I've seen it before, and I've never really understood what is being conveyed in that painting. And that was where a devotee was sitting cross-legged chanting japa, and there's a shadow behind him.
Oh, is that it? Yeah.
Like carrying a flag or something, and I think that was where you were talking about vigilance. But
Yeah.
I've seen that painting before. Would you please explain what that? Maybe show it again and explain what that painting is trying to say.
Well, here's a devotee who's not an official meditator, but is actually a warrior. He's very vigilant in meditating. So you can see the shadow is like he's a knight. So he's actually a modern knight. Or a modern Jedi, actually. I tell a lot of the same kind of devotees. I say you guys are the modern Jedis. Going out there and giving light to the conditioned souls, showing them what it's like to really, what it means to be a spiritual warrior. So
that sort of applies to all of us?
Yeah. We should be spiritual warriors. And this was Bhakti Tirtha Swami's whole preaching, his spiritual warrior books that he printed. Very nice, all about spiritual warfare, how we have to really become like warriors and be vigilant in this Krishna consciousness movement. Always attentive for Krishna, how we engage Krishna every moment, 24 hours a day. Otherwise, we become vigilant with the ego. The ego is vigilant to attract us and to snap us and to distract us in so many things. So, we're declaring war on Maya, Prabhupada said. So, yeah.
Nice explanation.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of my favorite pictures. I love that picture. This one, and I like this one too. This is one of my super Prabhupada. Coming and saving us. On the boat of ISKCON.
Oh yeah, you show that a lot. That's a great one.
It's one of my favorite ones. And I like to do the showing because it's such a big painting, you have to cut it in two. So this is where we're saved from. This life of death, life of death, suffering. Right. Thank you, Prabhu. Is there any more comments, questions?
Gauda, I am driving. Is it too loud to hear me? I'm in the car.
No, I can hear you clear. Loud and clear.
I was puzzled. I didn't read the purport until you read it. And when I read the verse, I was saying, oh, this is so nice, the way that Kasyapa and Diti are treating each other. They're praising each other. It's so much different than you find in the Kali Yuga. Married couples treat each other so badly, don't at all appreciate each other's good qualities. So I thought he was saying this very seriously, but it appears in the purport, Prabhupada said that he's got to be joking. Basically, that's what he was saying. So you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I was noticing that how in the beginning, Prabhupada says so much glorification of a woman by her husband indicates that he's henpecked or is talking lightly in joke. And then at the end of the purport he says, such extraordinary praises by a husband for his wife are certainly in the mode of joking. So we can see how actually we know that Kashyapa was a little weak spiritually, so he gave in to his wife instead of telling her, it's impossible to do it now, just wait. But in fact, he started to praise her. And then in the purport, Prabhupada turns it around in the middle between those two sentences I read. Prabhupada actually brings some really deep realizations about how we are actually very fortunate that we're protected by the wife. And how he said Kashyapa, meant what Kashyapa really meant here, Prabhupada saying. What Kashyapa meant, that householders living with wives enjoy the heavenly blessings of sense enjoyment and at the same time have no fear of going down to hell. So Prabhupada's bringing it to a Krishna conscious understanding. And how I was trying to bring into the point how Prabhupada has given us the process of how we can engage in Krishna consciousness. We are protected because we are engaged in Jagya. Our life is molded in such a way that for 24 hours a day, we're just thinking of, but we engage it in such a way that we cannot help it but to think of Krishna. So that's the process, and how we're protected. Whether you're in a household or life, or whatever the ashram you're in, or whatever, we have to mold our life in such a way that we become Krishna conscious and saved from this distraction of the material world, from this death, as Prabhupada mentions, how the most important training or enlightenment we can get in this Varnashram system is to be educated that sex life is the cause of our death. So if we could be trained properly how to use sex, then we can actually get liberated. It's such a powerful understanding, and it's completely the opposite of what happens today. Like Sankarshan was telling how when he was growing up in school that, this was so pushed that, oh, you don't have a girlfriend? What, man, you're weird. So they would call him, what was his, they gave him a joke. They called him Chicken. Chicken and his last name, whatever his last, I can't remember what his last name was. He mentioned they called him Chicken, because he didn't have a girlfriend. But it's so, nowadays it's like, if you don't have a girlfriend, if you're not engaging in sex, then geez, what the heck's wrong with you? But people don't realize that how binding it is and how contaminating it is, that if you're engaging in sex, you can't go back to God. You may become pious. Even if you're engaging in illicit sex in Grihastha ashram, still it's illicit. It's illicit sex. So, yeah, even in Vedic times, he was saying that sex was like only once in a lifetime, really, just to have a child. And then if you didn't do it, maybe a couple times more in a lifetime, that the man would, extend his semen, because it was such a valuable thing that it nourishes the brain, it travels up the spine, it makes one good memory, makes one body very strong. One could go through old age very simply. And yeah, it's amazing. Otherwise, the complete opposite happens. And the same thing, I think, with the woman also, because she's wasting her vital energy. And it causes a lot of problems that we see today. It's just amazing. Yeah. So I hope that helps. That's kind of how I was appreciating what Prabhupada said that, but I'm sure maybe someone has more or other realizations also. Is that okay, Ramananda? Are you still tuned in?
He's driving, so it may be difficult for him to unmute himself.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or realizations?
No, those are good. Those are good answers to Ramananda's questions. I agree. I think that Prabhupada's speaking a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because if we see globally what Prabhupada's talked about for quite a few verses, that the woman is greatly, greatly appreciated because she gives such protection to the fort.
Right.
And we're really, a husband who has a good wife is so fortunate. It's such a blessing. It keeps him safe on this journey and protects him from his greatest enemy, which Krishna says, this lust which burns like fire and covers a living entity. And Krishna says it is our Nityavirana. It's like our eternal enemy, and she's there to protect us. So I think Prabhupada's speaking a little tongue-in-cheek.
What is the definition of tongue-in-cheek?
Kind of jokingly.
Oh, okay.
Well, Hare Krishna, I don't know. Yes, I think it's still a little confusing and of what we are talking about here, because I think we have to understand the actual meaning of the purport. Obviously, considering the other verses that we have been reading, a good wife, it says in previous verses as well, is a tremendous boon and an advantage to the householder, because without a good wife, you can really go down a very slippery slope and fall down in the worst way. So a wife is very, very important, really, in order to keep yourself on track. And so in the Bhagavatam, in this verse, it is actually saying that, the service you are providing is so valuable that we cannot even repay you, not even after death. So I don't know if he's joking so much. I think I don't think Kashyapa Muni is joking that much. The real issue here is that the wife is a very important element of the household, without the wife, the husband would be in trouble. But the second one, I think this is what Prabhupada is talking about here, and we shouldn't confuse it. Let's not take Prabhupada out of context, which is what a lot of devotees do. And it says that in the purport that householders living with wives enjoy the heavenly blessings of sense enjoyment and at the same time have no fear of going down to hell, meaning that if you enjoy householder life with wives, it's a plural, not wife, but wives. So if you are enjoying material life with your wives, in plural, then yes, you may be enjoying the sense enjoyment, but then you are also going down to hell. That's what he's actually saying. So Prabhupada is really saying that, is in a sense giving priority or benefit to monogamy. Okay, he's actually saying have a good wife in singular, meaning monogamy. I think that's something. What do you think about that? Monogamy versus polygamy, which is the real difference here.
One thing is that polygamy was certainly not acceptable now, but in past times it was. And a husband who was able to maintain more than one wife, that was a good thing. But that's certainly not applicable now. But I think what we were talking about, we were mentioning that when I was saying Prabhupada was speaking a little bit tongue-in-cheek, when he's saying that much glorification of a woman by her husband indicates that he is henpecked, or talking lightly in joke. Well, that's the part I was saying. I'm in agreement with you that having the wife is this incredible boon. But I think just in the very beginning, very end of the purport, he speaks a little bit tongue-in-cheek, saying that he's henpecked if he glorifies the wife. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong at all about a husband glorifying the wife. I think that's encouraging and a good thing. It builds a relationship.
Well, but he is also saying earlier that if a husband doesn't have a good wife, then he can become a debauchee or go after other women, and he can cause disturbance in society. I think that this is something to be looked at, that maybe in the past there was a predominance of the polygamy, but definitely in this day and age, I think Prabhupada is really leaning towards monogamy, meaning if you have a good wife, meaning a wife that keeps you away from other women, basically, then your life is going to be easier. Your life is going to be easier, because if you have more than one wife, then it's going to become more complicated. And ultimately, as you are saying, we have to get out of the material world by renouncing sex life. And how are you going to do that anyway? I mean, you're going to chant Hare Krishna, yes, and you're going to engage in devotional services. But I'm going to tell you this right now, and it may shock you, but you cannot really chant Hare Krishna unless you really are inspired and you have the blessings of the spiritual teacher. You can't chant it. You cannot just go, okay, here is a set of beads, go and chant 16 rounds. You cannot do that. You cannot just go and chant Hare Krishna. It's not so easy. Chanting Hare Krishna requires you have the blessings of the Vaishnavas, blessings of the Guru, and also that you have a desire to get there. Without the desire to find God and to be with God, there is no way you can find Krishna or chant Hare Krishna. It's not so easy. Not so easy to chant the holy names.
It's a whole process too. In the beginning, we don't strictly go out and put out a flag in the front of the temple, or we go out on Harinam. We don't have a flag that says follow these 4 principles or you can't chant Hare Krishna. But we attract them to Krishna consciousness. As the verses I quoted from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, doesn't matter whether one's a rogue, fallen, or whatever his condition is, they simply hear the holy names. That's the beginning of their spiritual life. And then gradually, as they become purified and taste the nectar, then they come and join Krishna consciousness. They start following the principles, they take initiation, they get the blessings of the Guru, and then they will go back home back to Gauda. In the beginning, we're not, Prabhupada says in the beginning, we don't bring out the 4 regular principles and go out and preach. And I guess as far as in the purport here describes, you were mentioning how bringing in, of course we know Kashyapa had many wives. And what Prabhupada's saying is, he mentions householders, which is also plural. And then he mentions wives, which is also plural. So it could be not only referred to people that have more than one wives, but many householders and many wives. They can be in different homes, different families. So, and that's interesting how Prabhupada is bringing the point that we have to admit that Kashyapa Muni wasn't strong enough to resist his wife. That's why Prabhupada's calling him henpecked. I mean, he could have said, no, we can wait. But he didn't. He wasn't strong as Haridas Thakur, who was lured by Mahadevi herself. So because of that, I think he has a little tendency to call him henpecked or talking rudely, jokingly like that. It doesn't deny the fact that you're bringing up that, yes, we have to, we are actually protected. We should glorify women. In the Vedic culture, women are like worshipped as mother. I was amazed. There was a sannyasi that gave a class in LA here, and he was just glorifying Vedas. And it's amazing how much glorification, how much respect for Vedic things. It's very important. So and as Prabhupada mentions that we support each other, the woman, respects the man, and the man respects the woman, and they both respect the children. And it's all in relationship to Krishna. So that's nice. Anyway, that was just my understanding and 2 cents worth.
I agree with you, Gauda, that regarding chanting, that we're in the clearing stage. Narta Nivritti. That's the stage where we come, where we're clearly chanting with offense and inattention, and in so many ways. That's why we emphasize so much hearing and focusing upon the 10 offenses, so that gradually, very, very gradually, our chanting becomes pure. It's not that all of a sudden you're just going to, well, I guess it's conceivable, but certainly not likely that someone's just going to get the blessings of the Vaishnavas and chant the holy name perfectly and purely. It's a very, very gradual process, and that's exactly what we're all going through. That's why we're here hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam class, so that gradually our hearts become purified, and gradually, very gradually, through a lifetime, we come to the point where we can chant the holy name without offense and really taste the full nectar of the holy name. But it's a process, and it's gradual.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. But it's nice how in the beginning a neophyte can get a taste. Krishna is so merciful, gives them some taste of ecstasy. So they want more and more, or they come back for more nectar.
Yeah.
I want more. Give me more. Give me more. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, very nice input. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other comments, realizations? I guess it's 10:03. We can end if you like.
So thank you, Gauda. Nice class, and thank everyone for, it's great. Everybody throw some nectar into the pot.
Thank you, Prabhu, very much.
Oh, Gauda Shri Prabhupada.
Gauda Shri Prabhupada. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Gauda.
Hare Krishna.
Hi,
Haribol.
Paul.